Hello, this is Jackie B. Peterson, author of Better, Smarter, Richer, 7 Business Principles for Encore, Solo, and Creative Entrepreneurs. It's my mission to help solos, those of you in one-person businesses, understand and apply the 7 solo business principles to your enterprises so that you can find greater financial success. One of the things I've learned in my many, many years of consulting and working with small businesses is that solo enterprises are distinctly different from traditional businesses, and there's some things you simply need to do to make your solo business be successful, and that's what Better, Smarter, Richer is all about. I really hope that you'll visit the website, bettersmarterricher.com. You can download the free ebook outlining the 7 principles, sign up for the free newsletter, and join the conversation on the blog. Also, of course, stay tuned to this weekly radio show, particularly if you're an Encore entrepreneur, where you can find that show on my website, bettersmarterricher.com. You can also find it posted to www.soloproradio.com. It's a great podcast. And if you check in with us also, you can find how you can download it on iTunes and on the Solo Pro Radio Facebook page. Lots of places to pick up this podcast. So last week we began a discussion about the difference in culture in organizations in the 21st century versus the 20th century. As you know, I began a series of conversations, 3 of them that we are going to have, with my guest, Doug Lundrigan. Doug is a business coach who likens his work to that of a doctor. He examines the symptoms of the sick business, diagnoses the underlying disease, and prescribes effective treatments. Doug names his services leadership, team skills, emotional intelligence, trust, and predictive strategy. Doug's company is called Lighthouse Business Solutions. So last week when we talked, we identified 12 attributes of the culture of the 21st century organizations and why they're so important to today's businesses. Our discussion was about how today, if you are over 50 and seeking work, either as an Encore entrepreneur, self-employed, or as an employee for another firm, having these characteristics and being able to display them will be extremely important if you want to be successful in either endeavor. We were only able to discuss 6 of the attributes last week. We ran out of time. So today we're going to continue our discussion and talk about the other 6 attributes. Our format has been more or less to define the attribute, then talk about how it shows up in today's organizations. Our plan is that once we've completed our discussion of these attributes, we're going to then talk about ways that someone could go about acquiring some of these characteristics or practicing them to make them stronger, or even demonstrating them as part of the job interview or proposal for work as a teacher, coach, consultant to a 21st century organization. Just so you know, the full list of the 12 characteristics of the business culture shift in the 21st century is posted on my website, bettersmarterricher.com, and it's also posted on Doug's website, which is Lighthouse for Business, and that's a letter number 4, Lighthouse numerical 4 business.com. So if you want the entire list and to take a look at them with some expanded definitions of what that word means and how we're using it when we talk about 21st century organizational culture, go to either website and take a look at it. So Doug, how are you today? Let's continue our discussion.
Hi, Jackie. It's great to talk with you again. Thanks for having me on your show.
Well, I'm glad you're here. This has been a very interesting discussion to me. As you know, I'm working a lot with people who are looking for work after the age of 50, which certainly I think defines us, you and me. And there are things that people need to know about what is relevant in organizational culture today. It's different than it used to be in the days of command and control and very strong hierarchical organizations, those that were in existence and powerful during the years of the 20th century, you know, the 80s and the 70s and the 90s, when a lot of people who are in their encore years, 50 plus, were growing up and entering the workforce. They were working in places that had, a much different culture than organizations do today. So we want to talk about how they might learn what an organization would be like now. So I'm just going to start where we left off with some of these characteristics. And the first one in our second half of our list is flexibility. So what does that mean?
Well, this is probably the granddaddy of all of the 12 culture differences because it denotes the flexibility to adapt to the new culture. If you can't be flexible and you're stuck in the old culture, then you're not going to be successful in any of these 12 cultural differences. But flexibility is closely related to resilience, which is the last one we spoke of last week. We have to adapt to the demands of the market, including our title, our work hours, our location, team membership, lines of authority. These things are all going to be different than they were 20 or 30 years ago. We need to change to the current demands of the workplace without compromising or breaking our own moral compass. We're not talking about breaking things. We're talking about flexing. So we have to hang on to some of the tried and true moral issues, but still be flexible enough to conform to some of the new ways of doing business. So we need to.
I would think this would be really important when organizations are moving so fast today, and they're so competitive in many ways that an organization might head off in one direction and find out that that isn't going to work, and that they have to shift. They might even have to shift product design. They might have to shift their production approach. They might have to shift the materials that they're using. Might even have to shift the target market that they're going after. Is that kind of the flexibility that they may have to have?
Oh, absolutely, Jackie. You've really hit the nail on the head there. That the only thing that we can be certain of that stays the same is that there will be change. Mm-hmm. It's just happening more rapidly than before. And flexibility, I think, is really a state of mind. If we find ourselves thinking, "Oh, I like the old way better," or "Why can't we just keep doing things the way we always have been?" This is the opposite of flexibility. So we can catch ourselves thinking those thoughts and try to embrace the fact that the only thing that stays the same is change, and that it will always be with us. We may as well just be happy that things are changing and go with it.
Well, I liked what you said about you're being flexible in maybe your actions and your approaches to things, but you never let go of the moral compass. So maybe you never let go of the vision, you never let go of the values, you never let go of trusting in your fellow employees or trusting in your own capability, but you carry it out in different ways because the change is brought about by some external factors. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and there's something that you said there that really corresponds with some research that's been done about this. So if you take just one, say, moral issue such as honesty, and over time, that might be something that people say, well, that's situational, and that it changes. My definition of honesty is different than yours. But as it turns out, the research that business colleges and universities have been doing, and psychological studies, shows that businesses thrive better when they have an honesty policy, and it's not just partly honest, not just honest sometimes, but it's a consistent, honest approach to all of their dealings with all of their customers and suppliers and coworkers. Businesses who do that do better. And so sticking to that moral principle will always bring success, and that doesn't need to change. But there are some other things that are changing with this 21st century that don't relate to moral issues that we can be flexible for.
Boy, that's a lot of food for thought. I like that one, and I certainly know the statement of that we've all heard in nature, adapt or die. And it seems to me we're going to all get a chance to experience that with what seems to be coming our way in, say, climate change. and which is showing up this winter, that we're going to figure this out, and we're going to adapt, or we won't be here. It's kind of an imperative, isn't it?
That is, for sure, yeah.
What it all comes down to. Well, I'm going to move us on to the next one because it sounds like more an entry is a little bit of an upper when maybe adapt or die is a little bit of a downer. And you wrote the characteristic of have fun. So let's talk about that.
Yeah, have fun. I love fun, but, in the workplace, traditionally, work's not supposed to be fun, is it? Work is serious business. We can't have fun, can we? Well, having fun at work means making it fun and happy, not just by happenstance, but it needs to be a place where people want to be and where they feel comfortable being themselves. And this fosters creativity and finding solutions to the complex problems that face us in this ever-changing world. Research shows that happy people really are more creative and productive and have less sick days than unhappy people. So, wow, what a revelation. If we make the workplace happy and fun, we do better as a business.
I like the part that you said that when a workplace is fun, people are more creative. Again, that means they can relax into their work and let their best side shine through because they're not feeling threatened.
Very much so. That's so true. I don't know about you, Jackie, but I've been in that kind of a culture where you do feel threatened. You feel like the culture is oppressive and very controlling. And wow, does it ever stifle the creativity? You just feel like doing the bare minimum and going home. You don't feel like bringing any of your creative juices to the table.
That's for sure. And, we need, as you say, we need those creative juices. And, when people relax, they and are happy and enjoying their work and enjoying being with each other, they're more productive as well, much more productive, because that creativity finds new ways to solve problems, new ways to get things done, and those ways are usually much more efficient and much more effective and makes everybody feel good. So have fun. All right.
Have fun. Yeah.
Have fun. Okay. Well, as far as our group, as far as we got with that was having an ugly sweater contest for our Christmas lunch this year, and that was pretty good. We had a good time with that.
Sounds
actually.
like fun. Yeah. That sounds like a blast.
I thought, what are we doing with this, having an ugly sweater contest? And then I kind of got into it. We had a wonderful time with it. It's next year. This is the first year we did it, so next year it's going to lead to more shopping at the Goodwill and the Salvation Army before the Christmas lunch to see who can top the next person. So your next characteristic is e-tools fluency. Let's talk about that. What does that mean?
Well, how do we live in this world without being proficient using some of the most recent technological advances? It almost goes without saying that, when you're talking about the 21st century culture, that this is a huge part of it. Very few jobs these days don't require some level of proficiency with computers and technology. So it becomes extremely important when we're talking, say, about a solopreneur starting a new business or a baby boomer working in a job with the younger generations. Being able to communicate and interact with these tech-savvy young people is a valuable asset. And, using social media appropriately and effectively is important. And fun.
Yes. And one of the things I know about people who are seeking work after 50, there's a lot of classes and support groups that talk about re-careering, and they talk about, they teach people how to apply for a job, filling something, an online application form. And another client of mine said, well, it's not that. You're probably looking for the job through your LinkedIn connections, because that's how people are finding jobs and finding work. It's all the relationships that they built, and, they make connections through that. by saying to their LinkedIn group, I'm looking for this, or has anybody heard of that, or do you know of anybody who's looking for someone who, or, those sorts of things. And that would certainly be a good tool for anybody, whether you're a consultant looking for your next gig or you're a unemployed looking for your next job, that it seems to me, most really good jobs are known by the people in the company or by people they have relationships with, but are not necessarily ever advertised on job sites. They're just known, they're talked about. Oh, our organization was talking about, or, gee, you should talk to so-and-so, they're thinking of doing this. And that's how, most work is found these days. So that certainly takes a level of fluency, in, at least in the LinkedIn and the social networks.
For sure. Jackie, you probably recall, as I do, this saying, it's not what you know, but who you know.
Yes.
And, that's from decades ago, but it's true now more than ever, but it just applies to our online community, which can be much larger than our face-to-face community or what that used to be.
Yes.
So it's like it's not what you know, but it's who you know on steroids, multiplied.
Yeah. Well, what I'm thinking of, too, is there's so many, getting back to LinkedIn, which is really a professional networking site. There are so many groups, and if you've got a particular interest like culture of 21st century organizations or leadership in organizations or imagining new ways of working, there are groups that are discussion groups about those things. And if you join one of those groups or several of those groups, you can follow the discussion. And it also gives you an opportunity to, I'm going to say, audition by contributing to the conversation that is going on in the group. And what happens is people begin to say, wow, hey, that Doug, he really knows what he's talking about. What's the name of his company? I think when we need somebody, he's somebody that we should call or talk to because, I can tell from the conversation that he knows what he's doing. And that's, as I say, it's kind of like an audition opportunity to have conversations in those groups. That's really wonderful to be able to do that.
I like that, Jackie. That's a really interesting and effective way of describing it, auditioning as we make our comments and contributions to the online discussions on the various topics.
Yeah, you break down that barrier of, well, who are you, and I don't know you, and I'm not sure you'll fit in our organization, and are you really appropriate for me to work with? All of those yeah-buts that we go through when we think of bringing a stranger into our organization, either as an employee or as a coach or a consultant or a teacher. And, we'd always rather work with the known person than the unknown person. So, being in those LinkedIn groups is a wonderful way to let people know you a little bit so that then they, when they have a real need for that service, they think back and say, oh, I know who I'd like to talk to, because we've been having some great discussions on LinkedIn. And it's really a great way to market.
I got to tell you, Jackie, just this morning I was on a webinar. I love to continually learn about all kinds of business aspects. And the webinar that I was on, one of the presenter made the comment that it used to be people wouldn't do business with somebody who didn't have a website because that kind of showed that they might be a little bit outdated and not a serious business owner. Mm-hmm. It's getting to be that way with social media now, where if a business doesn't have a social presence to some degree, they're almost thought of as being not as credible as the businesses who do. Yes. I think you've hit on something very important there, that we really do need to be involved with it. And it seems really overwhelming. I don't know about you, but sometimes I think, how am I going to have time to deal with LinkedIn and Facebook and Twitter, and now Pinterest is gaining some momentum in business.
Well, I just want to remind all of you that are solopreneurs that if you follow and use the water bug model, where you outsource various different services that you need, and you don't necessarily have time to do them, what you do is you find a person whose business is to be someone who manages social media accounts for others, and they will do your social media for you. And there's always this fear like, well, how could somebody who know me well enough to do my social media? And my experience, because I have a lovely person that does this for me, my experience is that it doesn't take a savvy writer too long to get to know you and your voice and the things that you think are important. And, so at first, of course, they're sending everything through you. You okay it before it gets posted. But it doesn't take too long, until they pick it up and they know how you would respond to something, and they simply respond to it, and they initiate conversations also. So this is a service that you can hire. And there are a lot of people that are, in the writing business who are beginning to make a career, a solo career out of being the social media voice for other businesses and for other, consultants and coaches. And that's great. That's a great thing.
Jackie, isn't this right along the lines with what we're talking about in our discussion, is that part of the changing culture is also that so many more of the functions of a business are being outsourced.
Yes.
And so there is a place for the solopreneur to make a living.
Yes.
Now, people aren't hiring a training department. They're outsourcing it to a training consultant like myself, or things like that. Social media management, marketing. These are all being outsourced.
Yes. What happened was that it's gotten pretty expensive to have employees. We've put in, if I speak from an employee side, we've campaigned for all the rules about how long is a work week and when do I get overtime and, when do I get sick pay. I mean, that's just gone in, a mandatory sick pay in the businesses in the city of Portland. I have to pay sick pay. I have to usually to keep people offer benefits of some kind. I might even have to offer retirement. It's gotten quite expensive to have employees. And then when you've got employees and they're doing a small project for you, if you've brought them on, you may have to keep them busy, which then becomes a whole other thing that you're doing. You're thinking, wait a minute, how come I'm working to keep my employees busy? They're supposed to be working to do the work my business needs done. So the answer has been to outsource a tremendous amount of services that are usually a discrete service or, a specific chunk of work to be done, or work that is project-based, it has a beginning and it has an end, or a specialty that is not usual to the operations of your company. And, you outsource that, and, you outsource this to, as you say, another solopreneur who has a little business specializing in that particular area. I think you get much better service that way, actually, because you get somebody whose specialty is whatever you're doing. So when somebody hires you, they get your specialty in the training, that you're doing, and you have deep, deep knowledge and experience in that area, much better than an organization having a 1 or 2 person training department where they're kind of, not particularly good at it and maybe have only worked within that one company, whereas what an outsourced trainer like you brings experience from multitudes of clients that you've had and brings that together into the work that you're doing now, and it's a much richer purchase, if you will, a much richer experience for your client because they get the benefit of all those other clients that you've been working for. I think it's just great.
Yeah, fantastic. And that really leads directly into our next bullet point or topic is entrepreneurship and innovation,
yes.
Right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Entrepreneurship is it's become almost a global imperative. It's alive and well, entrepreneurship and innovation. I can tell you from where I sit in the world that new ideas and innovation and entrepreneurship are like a bubbling pot. People are excited. They're eager to try new ideas. There's more opportunities for them to try new ideas. They're not feeling constrained by being in a position where they can't do something, and more and more in our entrepreneur or our encore entrepreneur thrust that we're talking about, people are saying, if I can't find work, I'm going to create my own. I'm just going to create my own. And how entrepreneurial and innovative is that?
That's the American way, right?
Yes. In my view, it is.
Really. I'd like to let me share with you just a little experience I had last week. I met with somebody at Oregon Health Sciences University, and this woman had a position that I thought was intriguing, so I asked to meet with her. She was in the Department of Startup Development.
Wow.
This is at Oregon Health Sciences University, OHSU. I had to ask her, what is your position about? And she said, well, my job is to help the inventors of new technology, whether it's a medicine or a medical device. These researchers, they're good at researching and finding innovative things, but they really don't know much about business. And so the entrepreneur side is the bringing of something of value to the market, but the innovation side is the actual invention of the item. And so these two together are what, fill unmet needs in our society. Somebody sees, maybe it's a medical situation that there's no answer to, and a smart person figures out the answer. Then somebody helps him, like the woman I was speaking with, helps him bring that to market and creates a startup company that offshoots from OHSU, and before you know it, people are having a health problem solved. It's wonderful.
That's fantastic.
A beautiful system that we have here.
And how wonderful that, as you say, a great big research teaching organization like that would name a person and possibly a department to do that, because they're putting huge focus on research and certainly expect to have a plethora of new products coming. And what a great idea. How fun.
It was surprising to me. OHSU is like 14,000 employees, and I can't imagine that many people would not be bringing something new to the market.
Wow.
But, I guess not many of them knew how to actually do the business side of it, so they created a whole department to do it.
Well, that's not too surprising that they didn't know how to do the business side. I certainly don't know how to do anything in medical research,
Yeah.
So maybe, too, part of our characteristics that we haven't talked about is that comes under this is that people are specializing more and more in, specific things. I don't think it's so much the day of the generalist anymore, as companies are more specialized into certain areas and specific things that they do, and they distinguish themselves from one another, which, because they've got a particular specialty. And I'm seeing that's very, very current, very 21st century.
Sounds like you've found a 13th.
Yeah, it sounds like it, doesn't it?
Century culture.
So let's talk about the one, speed. Boy, that's a big one. What do you see going on there?
We've already kind of touched on that on a few of the others, because it's sort of woven or interwoven throughout all of the culture changes, is that everything is faster.
Mm-hmm.
And so to compete in a rapidly changing marketplace with technological advances, we can't sit on something because it'll be out of date. So we no longer have the luxury of taking weeks or months or years to make decisions about pursuing opportunities. We have to do it now and act very quickly before things change again. And the fortunate thing is that we already talked about the e-tools, technology tools. They can help us with the speed. That's part of the beauty of it, is that technology helps us move things more quickly.
Yes, they do. And the thing with speed is to not be doing speed for speed's sake, but because it gives you a competitive edge in the marketplace, and also I think it gives you a it's a reaction to the e-tools that you're talking about, because we can communicate so quickly, and of course that's how new ideas spread and are germinated, and how an idea grows from just a little thought into a great big company is by the e-communications. And so the e-tools have speeded it up, and then the speed means more that we have to use the e-tools. So they're kind of interwoven in that sense.
Very, very adept there.
How do we stay grounded in this speed, in this speedy culture that we've got?
Hey, your guess is as good as mine. It's so dizzying sometimes. I just, here's what I try to do is I try to really get back to the people side of it. Are people going to benefit from this decision or from this product or service, and or is the speed of what I'm doing just for the sake of being speedy? That, like you said, you can't do it just for its own sake. You have to have a definite purpose behind it.
Yeah.
And to me, the purpose needs to be grounded in, does it help people in some way?
So the grounding loops right back to our shared vision and values, that we really need to have that talked about, that we can't hide those values. We can't assume people have them, because moving at such a speed as we are, we can lose touch with those values. So if people are going to move very fast, if they're going to be independent, if they're going to work more independently and make independent decisions, about a business transaction or about a process or about a material to use. I mean, think of our environmental issues, people are making decisions about, should I use this material or that material? Which one's going to be, the better welfare, not only for our profit, but welfare for, all of us as a species? Then we've got to be hanging on to values. It seems to me maybe that's what grounds us, is that grounding in values, or as we called it at the very beginning, a moral compass. And that's what allows us to operate, within that speed. I can't think of anything else that would do it.
No, yeah, I think you really hit it on the head there. That's, when you talk about the vision and the shared values and people being able to make a decision quickly, it used to be in the old paradigm that a lot of decisions had to move up the chain of command and then back down. And by the time they came back down, they looked different, and they were kind of out of touch with reality sometimes.
Yes.
But the new paradigm is that in order to be quick and speedy like the rest of the market and adapt to change as quickly as change is happening around us, we have to be able to make decisions at the site. And to do that, we have to have that shared values or shared vision of what we're trying to accomplish, so that the people who own the company or run the company trust the people who are on the front lines where the rubber meets the road, trust those people to make the right decision, because we're all running in the same direction. We're all focusing our efforts for the same goal. So yes, speed and trust and shared vision are also intricately connected and important.
And there's that trust goes the other way. The owners of the company who have the financial risk in the organization have to trust that the employees are going to make the right decision. I mean, think of OHSU with 14,000 employees. I mean, they've got to trust that their employees are going to, on the job, every day, make the right decision within the values. But the employees also have to trust that the leaders of the organization are going to make the right decisions also, that they will stand firm, that they will stand by a set of moral values and a set of a vision of where they're going, and a set of values about how we're going to operate, not just within our organization but within society, because otherwise they are never going to feel safe making those decisions. So it's certainly a continuous loop, back and forth. And it seems to me, I know you do a tremendous amount of consulting around leadership, and I would bet that you teach leaders how to not only talk about this, but how to walk their talk, how to embody and show their employees that they are trustworthy of their time and effort.
Absolutely.
Because leaders have to know that.
These are some of the things that I really stress when I talk with leaders, is that you have to be genuine, it has to be real, your intent has to be pure, and even if you have 100 instances when you are trustworthy, but you have one where you break trust, everybody's going to remember the one that you broke.
Right.
And so you have to be so, self-disciplined to really never have a lapse in trustworthy behavior.
So I think it's so important, just so important. And as I say, I know your work is in leadership training. I would think that there would be no end to that work of, helping people display and embody the leadership that is required in a 21st century organization. And not just from the top, because we require leadership all the way along in the organization. If people are going to be entrepreneurial and innovative, they have to be leaders as well and live that. So last but certainly not least that we added is our characteristic called self-branding. Do you want to talk about that?
Now, you know what, Jackie? I happen to know for sure that you are a much better expert at this than I am, because it's in your book. So, you know what? I'm going to defer to you, because I've got my ideas on it, but I'm certain that they're not nearly as sharp as your ideas. So why don't you talk about self-branding?
Well, I will talk about that in the sense that I think when we've got so many people who are starting entrepreneurial, solopreneur businesses, or who are contracting with businesses for a specialty or for a short-term gig or for a definite piece of work, that it is absolutely critical that they be able to, as I like to say it, articulate their unique value proposition. They have got to be able to distinguish themselves from everyone else and distinguish themselves from the herd and the competition and other people who might be going after that same piece of work. What I have learned from the teachers that I have had, about marketing and sales, is that any potential client is always asking the question, why should I choose you? And your job as the person who is selling their time or their expertise or their engagement or themselves as either an employee or as a contractor needs to answer that question whether it is articulated out loud or not. You've just got to assume that the person to whom you are making your presentation is thinking that and thinking, why should I choose you? And that it's really important for you to be able to articulate what it is that distinguishes you, what you are bringing to the table, and why somebody should choose to work with you. And that's your self-branding. And as I say, I think there's a lot of things, I tell a lot of people, there's a lot of things the owner of the business doesn't have to do. Like you don't have to learn how to make your own website, and you don't have to do your own books, and you can hire somebody to do your taxes for you, and you can hire somebody to train your employees, or you can hire somebody to do your social media. But you have got to be able to talk about what it is that distinguishes you from everyone else and why your brand and who you are matters. And because that's what you're bringing to the table. You're bringing your individual set of skills and knowledge and ability and experience and your uniqueness as a human being. After all, there is nobody like you. And you're bringing your uniqueness tied to your experience and your perceptions to the project at hand. And you've got to be able to talk about that. So how about that?
Oh, that's brilliant. That's brilliant. See, I knew you could answer that way better than me.
I talk about this a lot. I think it's a big deal, and, more of a deal than it has ever been. And I know that for a while, like when I was getting my master's degree, one of my fellow students in our cohort was a project manager at Intel, and he kept explaining to us that at Intel, there was a process where you had to go find your own projects. You had to basically apply for them and get accepted by them, and so you could be on the payroll at Intel but not have a project, and it would behoove you to very quickly find a project. And so he was working on this very hard to articulate his own unique value strategy and his own unique value proposition so that he could be hired on internally on another project. And I thought, wow, that's so interesting that they operate that way. I love that. It's it makes it more competitive, and it makes you be sharper about what it is that you're good at and what the value that you bring to the company. I really like that.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah. So, again, listeners, if you are interested in taking a look at the whole list, they are on my website, bettersmarterricher.com, and they are on Doug's website as well, which is lighthouseforbusiness.com, and 4 is the numerical 4, lighthouseforbusiness.com, with some short explanations on them. And I hope this has given you a lot of food for thought. But my next question is, okay, so Doug and Jackie, these are the skills that people have to have. How in the world do they learn them? Are there classes they can take? Are there books they can read? Are they the activities they should do? How does somebody learn these skills?
Well, I don't know if you noticed, Jackie, it's interesting that 8 out of 12, I guess 13 maybe now, of these cultural changes for the 21st century are related to our emotional agility, which is our ability to act in an emotionally intelligent and responsible way. And so one of the amazing benefits of the information age is the vast quantities of information we have available to us to learn and to develop these kinds of skills. So, for example, I offer emotional intelligence testing to find out where someone has strengths or limitations, and I also offer seminars and one-to-one coaching. But also, there's the Small Business Development Center. Aren't you a coach of that or something?
Yes, I am. My title is Strategic Advisor.
Well, there you go. I mean, what a great asset that is, or resource, to be able to go there. And I think the SBDC offers a lot of help on some of the, I guess, less emotional, more of the technical business side of things. Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, we do. So, I've been talked with a lot of professionals over the last few months as I've really been talking about focusing this program more on Encore entrepreneurs. And I've been talking with them, people who are helping seniors re-career and are helping them create Encore entrepreneur activities. And they see definitely that these characteristics or lack thereof can prevent a retired person from coaching or teaching or training or turning around and monetizing their expertise in a 21st century organization, even when that Encore, that retired person may have the technical skill. And do you think that's true, that if they don't have the soft skills, that they're not going to fit into the new culture and therefore may not get the assignment, even though they've got the technical skills?
Oh, very much so. You sure hit it there. This is a challenge for us baby boomers to cope with a culture based on soft skills more than just technical skills. The good news is that soft skills can be learned and practiced. So, there is hope for all of us.
Uh-huh. And do you think that, you commented to me, so let me bring this up again. You commented to me that a lot of people just simply learn these skills as they age, that, it's considered, the name for them, if you wanted to group a name of them together, is maturity. And that, a lot of this stuff simply comes from your experiences in life and maybe, analyzing your experiences and going back and reviewing what's happened in your life and what really went on here and what really happened and what might I do to improve it next time, and what did I do that I don't ever want to do again, and what did I do that I always want to do because it worked great. So do you think that kind of review, that kind of approach that's called a learning organization would be a good approach for people to take?
Oh, for sure. When you talked about age as it relates to soft skills or emotional intelligence, there's a lot of research about demographics of who has more emotional intelligence. And contrary to intuition, women don't generally have more than men. They just have a different type of it. I mean, emotional intelligence is really 27 different competencies. And so when you take them as a whole, men and women are about equal, rich and poor are about equal, the races are all about equal, but what is different is that the older you are, generally, the more emotional intelligence you have. And so, our experiences can contribute to that. But sometimes we get stuck. There might be a weakness we have, or several out of the 27, that we just kind of hang on to throughout many, many years. And sometimes that is what gets us fired or prevents us from getting the job or the promotion or landing that big client. And so some emotional intelligence, soft skills training definitely can help us get past some of those barriers. They're sort of self-imposed or internal barriers that we can have ourselves.
I think that's great. I think that's great, and maybe it's training, and maybe it's just raising awareness in many cases. Maybe it's for people after 50, not only seeking work but building new careers, that they think about these categories and they think about themselves relative to them, and how comfortable they are with them. And I know earlier when we talked, we thought maybe that one of the things people could do would be to do some reading. And, we thought about some of the books that maybe people should be reading. And so I'm going to give us some titles here. And, again, both Doug and I will put these titles up on our website. But I think also we may add some to that of things that people might want to read as a way to take a look at some of these characteristics and evaluate how they fit within them. Certainly one of the granddaddies of them all is a book called Good to Great, which talks about tremendous leadership. And one of the things I like about the leadership is that, in fact, I was just telling a client this today, when they talk about leadership and Good to Great, what they say is when you're giving praise, what you do is you look out the window. And in other words, you give praise to other people. But when you're placing blame, you look in the mirror and you say, what could I have done better because this did not go well? I like that a lot. Another one is 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Great book, Stephen Covey. And as Doug has said, people use the vocabulary from that book. We refer to it. We talk about sharpening the saw as one of the 7 habits. So if you haven't read it, you ought to read that. It's in the vernacular today. An old standby is Think and Grow Rich with Napoleon Hill. Another one that is not ever meant to be a business book, but is certainly important in this discussion, is Man's Search for Meaning, which comes out of the concentration camps in World War II. One of the ones I've always liked is called First Break All the Rules. I like that. There's certainly Discover Your Strengths. And then there's the book, again, that Doug and I keep referring to, which is Emotional Intelligence. And Doug, I think what I'll do is let you have a couple sentences on that, and then we're going to have to break off and continue and talk about it next week. So can you give us a couple sentences on emotional intelligence and the book and when it was written and who wrote it and that sort of thing?
Daniel Goleman is one of the fathers of emotional intelligence. First wrote a book in 1995, I believe, called Emotional Intelligence, Why It's More Important Than IQ. But his most recent book is just a couple years old, called Working with Emotional Intelligence, and it really applies more to the workplace. And I think it really speaks well to our topic today about this different culture that we're seeing and how it's more soft skills based. So I would highly recommend that book for anybody in trying to navigate the workplace today.
Okay. Well, listeners, we've done it again. We've spent a great hour of conversation. I think it's been very interesting and very enlightening, and I hope you're as engaged in this as I have been. What it seems to boil down to is that so many of the characteristics that we've talked about in 20th century business culture come down to this concept of emotional intelligence. So we're going to devote our conversation next week to a discussion of that particular concept and relate it back to our conversation about these attributes we've been discussing. So that would be great. If you've always wondered what people are talking about when they're talking about your EQ as opposed to your IQ, that's what we're going to talk about on our next Better, Smarter, Richer show on Solo Pro Radio. So I just want to close today, and Doug, thank you so much for your insights and stories and sharing with us what you see happening out there in the world of 21st century businesses and how important it is that our listeners looking for work after the age of 50 be aware of this new culture that is going on, and I really appreciate your input on this. And I want to remind you that this information is on my website, bettersmarterricher.com, and on Doug's website, lighthouseforbusiness.com. So in the meantime, thanks again for tuning in to this chapter of Solo Pro Radio, and I look forward to talking with you again next week. And remember, we're going to talk about emotional intelligence. Ought to be a great discussion. Goodbye.